The rain was falling hard over Los Angeles that October evening. Drops beat mercilessly against the windows of Julian Sterling's imposing estate, creating a melancholic rhythm that seemed to announce something extraordinary was about to happen. Julian, a 42-year-old man, was in his study reviewing the latest reports from his companies. His financial empire had grown exponentially in the last 10 years, making him one of the richest men in the country. But that wealth, that immense fortune, had failed to fill the void he felt in his heart. Ding dong! The sound of the doorbell interrupted his thoughts. Who could it be at this hour? He muttered, looking at his gold watch, which read 6:30 in the evening. He waited for his butler, Mr. Davis, to answer the door, but the old man had left early that day. With a sigh, Julian headed toward the main entrance, not imagining that by opening that door, his life would change forever. He turned the heavy bronze handle and was met with a sight that deeply impacted him. Standing in front of him was a young woman, soaked by the rain, with a small girl in her arms. Both wore worn, torn clothes and were trembling from the cold. The woman looked up, and her eyes, God, those eyes, were a golden honey color, filled with a mixture of desperation and dignity that Julian had never seen before. "Excuse me, sir," the young woman said in a trembling but firm voice. "My name is Isabella Ramirez, and this is my daughter, Lila. I know I have no right to bother you, but could I clean your house for food?" Julian stood completely frozen. In his 42 years of life, he had never heard such a direct, yet heartbreaking request. I don't need money," Isabella continued, holding little Lila tighter to her chest. We just need something to eat. I haven't eaten in 3 days, and my daughter has barely had a little water." The rain continued to fall, and Julian noticed that the little girl, barely 3 years old, had purple lips from the cold. Her large, sad eyes looked at him with an innocence that pierced his soul. "3 days?" Julian asked, feeling as if someone had punched him in the stomach. "Yes, sir. I'm very good at cleaning. I assure you. I worked in very elegant houses before things got complicated. I won't cause you any trouble, and my daughter is very quiet. We just need a chance." At that moment, Julian saw something in Isabella's eyes that moved him to tears. It wasn't just physical hunger. It was the pain of a mother who would do anything for her child. "Come in. Please, come in," he said, stepping aside from the door. "You'll get sick if you stay in the rain." Isabella hesitated for a moment, as if she couldn't believe what she had just heard. "Really? We can come in?" "Of course. Come on. I'll take you to a place where you can get dry and have something warm to eat." As he led them into the mansion, Julian couldn't stop observing Isabella. Despite her situation, she walked with a natural elegance that didn't go unnoticed. Her hands, though calloused from work, were delicate, and the way she spoke, her careful pronunciation, told him there was a much deeper story behind that request. "Sit here," he said, pointing to some armchairs near the fireplace. "I'll get some blankets and prepare something to eat." "No, sir." Isabella stood up immediately. "I came to work, not to receive charity. Tell me what you need me to clean, and Ms. Ramirez," Julian interrupted her with a gentle smile. "First, you will eat. You will get warm, and then we'll see about the work, okay?" Isabella looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and surprise. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her with such kindness. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time in a long time, a tear of relief rolled down her cheek. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. After preparing a hearty dinner for Isabella and little Lila, he had settled them in one of the guest rooms. The image of that brave mother asking for work for food wouldn't leave his mind. He got up and walked to his bedroom window. The rain had stopped, but the drops still sliding down the glass seemed like tears. Tears that reflected the sadness he had seen in Isabella's eyes. What kind of life must she have had to get to that situation? He asked himself in a low voice. The next morning, Julian went down to breakfast early. To his surprise, he found Isabella already awake in the kitchen, preparing coffee with a skill that amazed him. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she said with a shy smile. "I hope I wasn't too bold to use your kitchen. I thought I could make you breakfast before starting the cleaning." "Good morning, Isabella," he replied, noticing that the young woman looked completely different after a night's rest. "You didn't have to do this, but it smells delicious. It's the least I can do after your kindness yesterday." Julian noticed that Isabella had washed and styled her long, dark hair perfectly. Without the soaked clothes and the rain-streaked makeup, he could see that she was a truly beautiful woman. But there was something more. Something in the way she moved her hands, and how she had arranged the ingredients on the counter, that seemed familiar. "Where's Lila?" he asked. "She's still sleeping. She played a lot in the garden yesterday and was quite tired. She ate so well, you have no idea how much I thank you." As they had breakfast, Julian decided to ask some casual questions. "Where are you originally from, Isabella?" She looked down for a moment, as if the question had made her nervous. "From here, Los Angeles. I was born and raised in an area near downtown." "And did you study anything?" "Yes, I studied business administration at a state university, but that was a long time ago," she replied with a melancholic smile. Julian almost choked on his coffee. "Business administration? At a state university? That wasn't exactly a degree someone with limited resources would pursue." "That's a very interesting major," he commented, carefully observing her reaction. "Did you work at a company after you graduated?" Isabella's eyes filled with a deep sadness. "Yes, I worked at a few companies in the financial sector, but after Lila was born, things got very complicated. Her father, he didn't want to take responsibility, and I had to start over." "And you don't have family who could help you?" "No, sir. My parents died when I was 20 in a car accident. I don't have any siblings, and the few relatives I had, well, they disappeared when things got difficult." Julian felt a pang of pain in his chest. He knew that feeling of loneliness very well. "I'm so sorry, Isabella. That must have been very difficult." "Thank you. But I don't like to talk about myself, Mr. Sterling. I prefer to focus on the work. What would you like me to clean first after breakfast?" Julian showed Isabella the house. It was a 4-story mansion with more than 20 rooms. But what most caught the young woman's attention was the immense library on the second floor. "This is incredible," she exclaimed, approaching the shelves full of books. "You have a first edition of 100 Years of Solitude, and this biography of Frida Kahlo it's magnificent." Julian was completely surprised. Not only had she recognized the first edition of Garcia Marquez, but she had identified books that only someone with a very refined education would know. "You like to read?" "I love it," she replied, gently caressing the cover of one of the books. "I always thought that books were windows to better worlds, places where sad endings could turn into happy ones." At that moment, Julian felt something strange in his heart. There was something in the way Isabella spoke, in her knowledge, in her natural elegance, that didn't fit with the story she had told him. "Are you sure you've told me the whole truth about your past?" he asked softly. She stiffened and avoided his gaze. "I don't know what you mean, Mr. Sterling. I'm just a woman who needs to work to feed her daughter." But Julian had noticed something else. On Isabella's left wrist, there was a small star-shaped scar, a mark that was strangely familiar to him. "How did you get that scar?" he asked, pointing to her wrist. Isabella immediately covered the mark with the sleeve of her blouse. "It was an accident when I was a child. It's nothing important." But Julian knew that wasn't true. That scar, that star-shaped mark, he had seen it before. But he couldn't remember where. That afternoon, while Isabella cleaned the library with impressive meticulousness, Julian noticed something else. The young woman not only knew books, she knew art. She had perfectly adjusted a Rufino Tamayo painting that had been slightly crooked for years, and she had commented on the artist's technique in a way that only someone with deep knowledge of art could. "Who are you, really, Isabella Ramirez?" he murmured to himself, watching her from the doorway. But what impressed him most was the way Isabella interacted with her daughter. When little Lila woke up from her nap, the young woman spoke to her in perfect French, then in English, and then in Spanish. An ordinary woman would not speak 3 languages so fluently. That night, after Isabella and Lila had dinner and went to rest, Julian stayed in his study, thinking. There was something about this woman that deeply intrigued him, and not just because of the mysteries she seemed to hide. It was the first time in many years that he had felt truly Elif. The presence of Isabella and Lila had filled his mansion with a warmth he had never felt before. But he had to discover the truth, because Julian Sterling had learned in the world of business that the best opportunities and the greatest dangers always came disguised as something completely different. I hope you're enjoying this story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. 2 weeks had passed since Isabella and Lila arrived at the mansion, and Julian couldn't deny that his daily routine had changed completely. Every morning, he eagerly awaited coming down to breakfast and finding Isabella in the kitchen, preparing coffee with that shy smile that made his heart race. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she said that morning as always. But Julian noticed something different in her voice. "Good morning, Isabella. And please call me Julian. We've been living together for 2 weeks. We don't need so much formality." She blushed slightly and nodded. "Okay, Julian." The sound of his name on Isabella's lips gave him a strange feeling in his chest. He was falling in love, and that terrified and excited him at the same time. "Where is little Lila?" he asked, noticing that the girl hadn't appeared yet. "Is she still sleeping?" "Yes. She played a lot in the garden yesterday and got quite tired." During those 2 weeks, Julian had observed how Lila had adapted to the mansion. The girl was no longer the scared, hungry creature who had arrived in the rain. Now she ran through the hallways with laughter that filled the house with joy, and she had started calling him Uncle Julian with a confidence that melted his heart. "Julian," Isabella said, interrupting his thoughts, "I wanted to ask you something." "What is it? Why do you live alone in this big house? I mean, I'm sorry if I'm being too indiscreet, but it looks like a place made for a family." Julian was silent for a moment. No one had ever asked him that question so directly before. "I guess I always thought that someday I would find someone special to share it with," he replied, looking into her eyes. "But time passed. I focused on business and, well, here I am. At 42. Completely alone." "Were you never married?" No. I had some relationships, but none of them worked out. I always felt that the women who approached me were more interested in my money than in truly knowing who I am." Isabella looked at him with an expression of deep understanding. "It must be very difficult not to know if people love you for who you are or for what you have." "Exactly," Julian said, surprised by her insight. "And you? What was your relationship with Lila's father like?" Isabella's face darkened. "He was, well, I thought he was different. I fell madly in love. I thought I had found the love of my life. But when I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared. I never saw him again. Not even when Lila was born. No, he doesn't even know his daughter really exists. For him, we just ceased to exist." Julian felt a fury he hadn't experienced in a long time. How was it possible for someone to abandon a woman like Isabella and a girl as beautiful as Lila? "His loss," he said sincerely. "Any man would be proud to have a family like you." Isabella looked at him in surprise, and for a moment, Julian thought he saw something special in her eyes, something that seemed to go beyond gratitude. That afternoon, while Isabella was working in the garden, Julian watched from his study as she played with Lila. The little girl had found some butterflies and was running, trying to catch them, while her mother followed her with crystalline laughter. "Uncle Julian!" Lila shouted when she saw him at the window. "Come play with us!" Julian immediately went down to the garden. It had been decades since he had played with a child, but with Lila, everything seemed natural and fun. "You know, Uncle Julian," the girl said, sitting on his lap, "Mommy says you're the kindest man in the world." Julian looked at Isabella, who had blushed intensely. "Your mommy says that?" "Yes, and she also says she wishes all daddies were like you." Julian's heart stopped for a moment. Did Isabella really think that about him? "Lila, sweetheart," Isabella said quickly, "why don't you go look for more flowers for the vase?" When the girl ran off, Julian approached Isabella. "Do you really think that of me?" She avoided his gaze. "Lila says many things. Children imagine. Isabella, look at me." When she looked up, Julian saw a vulnerability in her eyes that went straight to his soul. "What do you really think of me?" "I think you're an extraordinary man," she said in a trembling voice. "I think any woman would be lucky to be with you. I think your heart is as big as this house, and the way you treat Lila, the way you have taken us in, speaks to the kind of man you are." Julian felt the world stop around him. "Isabella, But I also think we're from completely different worlds," she continued with tears in her eyes. "You are Julian Sterling, one of the most powerful men in the country, and I am just a woman who came to your door asking for food." "Don't say that," he said, getting closer. "I don't care where you came from or what you've been through. What matters is what I feel when I'm with you." "What do you feel?" "I feel that for the first time in my life, this house feels like a home. I feel that Lila has filled a void that I didn't even know I had. And I feel that I am falling in love with you, Isabella." Tears began to roll down her cheeks. "Julian, you can't say that. I'm not the woman you think I am." "Then tell me who you are. Tell me the whole truth." Isabella was silent for a long moment, as if she were fighting an internal battle. "I can't," she finally whispered. "I can't because if I tell you the truth, you're going to hate me, and I couldn't bear for you to hate me." Julian took her hands in his. "Isabella, listen to me closely. There is nothing you could tell me that would make me feel differently about you. Nothing. How can you be so sure? Because in these 2 weeks, I have seen your soul. I have seen how you love your daughter, how you work with dedication, how you treat everyone with respect and kindness. I have seen your intelligence, your culture, your goodness. That is the woman I am falling in love with." At that moment, Lila came running back with a bouquet of wildflowers. "Look what I found," she shouted with joy. "They're to decorate our house, Julian." Julian and Isabella looked at each other at the same time. Lila had said, "Our house," and for the first time, they both realized that was exactly how they felt. That night, after Lila fell asleep, Julian and Isabella stayed up talking on the terrace until very late. They talked about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future, and even though Isabella didn't reveal the whole truth about her past, Julian felt they had crossed an invisible line. They were falling in love, and they both knew it. 3 weeks after that conversation in the garden, Julian noticed that something had changed in Isabella. She was still affectionate and hard-working, but there was a tension in her eyes that hadn't been there before. It all started that Friday morning when the house phone rang. Isabella was nearby when Julian answered. "Hello," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. This is Robert Vance, from Vance and Associates Law Firm. I have some information that might interest you about an investigation you requested a few years ago." Julian frowned. He didn't remember requesting any recent investigation. "I'm afraid I don't recall. It's about the Ramirez case, the family that lost everything in the financial scandal 5 years ago. We've found new evidence that could completely change." "Wait a moment," Julian interrupted, noticing that Isabella had turned completely pale. "Can you call me back later? I'm busy right now." "Of course, sir. I'll call you this afternoon." When Julian hung up, he turned to Isabella, who looked like she was about to faint. "Isabella, are you okay?" I feel a little dizzy. I think I need to sit down." Julian helped her to the sofa, but he couldn't help but notice that Isabella's reaction had been very strange. Why would she be so upset by a business call? "Do you want me to call a doctor?" No, that's not necessary. I just need to rest a little." For the rest of the day, Julian noticed that Isabella was extremely nervous. She had made small mistakes she had never made before, and she constantly looked toward the door as if she expected someone to arrive. That afternoon, when Robert Vance called again, Julian decided to take the call in his study, with the door closed. "Tell me, Robert, what is this about the Ramirezes?" "Mr. Sterling, 5 years ago, you asked me to investigate the case of the Ramirez family. They lost their entire fortune in a financial fraud, and you wanted to make sure you hadn't been indirectly involved." Julian felt as if he had been slapped. Suddenly, everything began to fit together. "Continue," he said in a tense voice. "Well, we've discovered that Edward Ramirez, the family patriarch, was completely innocent. He and his wife, Teresa, invested all their savings in a company that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. They lost their house, their businesses, everything. Edward died of a heart attack 2 months after losing everything. And Teresa died in a car accident a short time later. And did they have children?" "Did they?" "Yes, sir. A daughter named Eloisa. According to our records, she was 20 years old when her parents died. She studied business administration at a state university and was a very bright young woman. But after her parents' death, she completely disappeared. We could never find her." Julian felt the world collapse around him. Isabella Ramirez. Exactly. A very beautiful young woman, according to the photographs we have. She had a small star-shaped scar on her left wrist, the result of an accident she had when she was a child. Julian closed his eyes. The scar, the education, the knowledge of art and literature. It all made sense now. "Robert, why did I ask you to investigate this case 5 years ago?" "Because you suspected that the fraud that destroyed the Ramirez family was connected to some of your competitors' companies. You wanted to make sure you hadn't been indirectly involved. And what did you discover? That you had nothing to do with the fraud. But we also discovered who the real culprit was. And it's a person very close to you, Mr. Sterling." Julian remained silent, processing all the information. "Who?" "Your business partner, Alexander Hayes. He was the one who organized the entire fraudulent scheme. He used privileged information he obtained from your meetings with you to create the scam. The Ramirezes were just one of many families who lost everything because of Hayes." Julian felt a fury he had never experienced in his life. Alexander Hayes had been his partner for 10 years, and at the same time, he had been destroying innocent families. "Do you have proof of this?" "All the evidence is in my office, sir. Documents, recording, testimonies, everything you would need to take him to trial. Robert, I need you to send me all that information immediately, and don't tell anyone." When Julian hung up the phone, he sat at his desk for long minutes. Isabella. His Isabella. She was the daughter of the victims of Alexander Hayes' fraud. But something didn't fit. If Isabella knew who he was, if she knew he had been Hayes' partner, why had she come to his house? Why had she agreed to work for him? Suddenly, a terrible suspicion began to form in his mind. What if Isabella hadn't come to his door by chance? What if she had planned everything from the beginning? But then, he remembered her eyes that first night in the rain. He remembered her hunger, her desperation, the genuine love she felt for Lila. No, it couldn't have been an act. Julian got up and headed toward the room where Isabella and Lila were getting ready for dinner. He had to talk to her. He had to know the whole truth. When he arrived at the room, he found Isabella packing her few belongings in a small bag. "What are you doing?" Isabella turned to him with tears in her eyes. "We're leaving, Julian. We've abused your hospitality enough." "Leaving? Why? Because it's time for you to know the truth. And when you know it, you won't want us to stay here. Julian approached her and took her hands. Isabella, I already know who you are. I know you're the daughter of Edward and Teresa Ramirez. I know what happened to your parents. Isabella completely broke down and began to cry. You knew? I just found out. But what I don't understand is why you came here. Did you know who I was from the beginning? Isabella nodded through her tears. Yes, I knew who you were, but not for the reasons you think. Julian stood motionless, waiting for her to continue. When my parents died, I was completely alone. I lost the house, our savings, everything. I had to drop out of college and look for work wherever I could. For 5 years, I worked in houses, in offices, in any place that would give me a job. And Lila came when I was 22. Her father was my boss at an accounting firm. He promised me marriage. He promised me a future. But when he found out I was pregnant, he fired me and disappeared from my life. Julian felt his heart break as he listened to her story. After Lila was born, things got worse. No one wanted to give a single mother without references a job. Little by little, we lost everything until we ended up living on the street. But you knew who I was. Why did you specifically come to my house? Isabella took a deep breath before continuing. Because 6 months ago, when I was in my most desperate situation, I ran into someone who had known my family before. That person told me there were investigations into the fraud that destroyed my parents. He told me that you had been Alexander Hayes' partner, but that you had also been the one who asked them to investigate the case. Who told you that? Robert Vance. He was my family's lawyer before we lost everything. He found me by chance in a park where Lila and I had spent the night. At first, he didn't recognize me, but when I told him my name, Julian closed his eyes. It was all starting to make sense. Robert told me that you had been the only businessman who had shown an interest in truly investigating what had happened to the affected families. He told me that you suspected Hayes had been using you for his scams, and that's why you came here? No, Isabella said, looking him directly in the eyes. I came here because Robert told me something else. He told me that you had established a compensation fund for the affected families, but that they had not been able to locate many of the victims. Julian was perplexed. He didn't remember establishing any fund. Isabella, I didn't... Robert explained that the fund had been created in secret because you didn't want it to look like an admission of guilt. He told me that if I came to you and told you my story, you might help us. But why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? Isabella's tears fell harder. Because when I got here that night in the rain, I had no intention of asking you for money. I just wanted to get to know you. I wanted to see if you were really the kind man that Robert had described. And what did you find? I found that you were much better than I ever imagined. The way you welcomed us, the way you treated Lila, the way you spoke to me. Julian, in 5 years, no one had treated me with such dignity and respect. Julian felt his heart swell with emotion. Then why do you want to leave now? Because I fell in love with you, Isabella confessed, her voice broken. And that wasn't in my plan. I came here thinking you would just be a rich businessman who would want to help us out of guilt. But I really got to know you, and I fell in love with the extraordinary man you are. And now I can't stay, knowing that the shadow of the past will always be between us. Julian took Isabella's face in his hands. Isabella, listen to me very carefully. The past does not define our future. What Alexander Hayes did has nothing to do with what I feel for you. How can you be so sure? Because I love you. I love you, I love Lila, and I want us to be a family. I don't care how you got here. What matters is that you are here now. At that moment, little Lila appeared at the door of the room. Mommy, why are you crying? Did Uncle Julian do something bad to you? Julian knelt down to the girl's level. No, princess. Your mommy is crying because she's sad. But I want to ask you something very important. What is it, Uncle Julian? Would you like me to be your real daddy? Would you like us to live together forever? Lila's eyes lit up like 2 stars. Yes! Yes! I want you to be my daddy! She shouted, jumping into his arms. Julian looked at Isabella over the girl's head. And you, Isabella? Would you like to be my wife? Isabella covered her mouth with her hands, completely surprised. Julian, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my entire life. I love you, Isabella Ramirez. I want to marry you. I want to adopt Lila. I want us to build the family that the 3 of us have been looking for. But I have nothing to offer you. I don't have money. I don't have a prestigious family. You have everything I need, he interrupted her. You have a beautiful heart, an extraordinary intelligence, and you have given me the greatest gift of my life. You have taught me what it means to truly love. Lila clapped excitedly in Julian's arms. Say yes, Mommy, say yes! Isabella looked at Julian and Lila, and for the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to believe that happy endings did exist. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Julian, I want to marry you. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for Julian. After the marriage proposal, he had made several important decisions that would change not only his life, but also that of many other people. The first thing he did was call Robert Vance to meet him at his office. Robert, I need you to explain exactly what you told Isabella Ramirez 6 months ago. The lawyer looked nervous. Mr. Sterling, I found her in a very difficult situation. I thought you would want to help her, considering the investigation we had done on her family. But you told her that I had established a compensation fund? Robert lowered his head in shame. Yes, sir. But I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. That family had suffered a lot because of Hayes, and you had shown so much interest in the case. Julian was silent for a moment, processing the information. Robert, you know what? You were right. I should have established that fund a long time ago. Sir, I want you to prepare all the necessary legal documents to create the Ramirez Compensation Fund. We are going to help all the families who were affected by Hayes' fraud. Are you serious? Completely serious. And I want the first beneficiary to be my future wife, Isabella Ramirez. Robert was speechless. Your future wife? That's right. And I also want you to begin all legal proceedings against Alexander Hayes. It's time for him to pay for what he did. That afternoon, Julian returned home with a smile he couldn't wipe off his face. He found Isabella in the garden, teaching Lila the names of different flowers. How was work? She asked, approaching to give him a kiss on the cheek that made him feel like he could conquer the world. Very good. In fact, I have some news for you. Good news, the best. First, I have officially established the Ramirez Compensation Fund. Your family is going to receive all the money they lost because of Hayes' fraud, plus the corresponding interest. Isabella was speechless. Julian, you can't do that. It's too much. Second, he continued, taking her hands. Alexander Hayes is going to jail for what he did. We already have all the necessary evidence. Really? Really. And third, Julian knelt down in the garden and took out a small velvet box. I want to give you the marriage proposal you deserve. Isabella put her hands to her chest, moved to tears. Isabella Ramirez, Julian said, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring that sparkled like a star. Will you marry me and be my partner for life? Yes! Lila shouted before her mother could answer. Mommy, say yes. Isabella knelt down in front of Julian, with tears of happiness rolling down her cheeks. Yes, Julian. Yes, I want to marry you. When he put the ring on her finger, Lila began to clap and jump for joy. We're going to be a real family. We're going to be a real family. That night, after Lila fell asleep, Julian and Isabella sat on the terrace to plan their future. What are you thinking about? He asked, noticing that she was very quiet. I'm thinking about my parents, Isabella replied softly. I wish they could be here to meet you. They would have loved you. Tell me about them. Isabella smiled wistfully. My dad, Edward, was a very hard-working man. He had a small construction company and always said that honest work was the only way to get ahead. My mom, Teresa, was an elementary school teacher. She taught me to love books and art. It shows that they raised you very well. They always believed in me. When I went to study business administration, they were so proud. My dad used to say I was going to be the first female executive in the family. Julian took her hand. And you will be. I have a proposal to make to you. What kind of proposal? I want you to work with me at the company. I want you to be my partner not only in life, but also in business. Isabella looked at him in surprise. Julian, I haven't worked in the corporate world in 5 years, but you have the background, the intelligence, and the life experience that I need. Besides, I need someone I can completely trust, someone to help me make sure we never have partners like Alexander Hayes again. Are you serious? Completely. What do you say? Do you want to be the vice president of Sterling Enterprises? Isabella was silent for a moment, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. You know what's the most incredible thing about all this, she finally said. That 3 months ago, Lila and I had nowhere to sleep or anything to eat. And now we're going to get married. We're going to be a family. And I'm going to have a job that I love. It's like a dream. It's not a dream, my love. It's our new reality. Julian, can I ask you something? Anything you want. Why do you love me? I mean, you could have any woman in the world. Why me? Julian looked at her with infinite tenderness. I love you because when you came to my door on that rainy night, you didn't just ask me for work. You gave me back hope. I love you because you are brave, because you fought alone for 5 years for your daughter, never giving up. I love you because you are intelligent, beautiful, and kind. But most of all, I love you because with you, I have discovered what it means to be truly happy. Isabella moved closer to him and kissed him with all the passion and love she had been holding in her heart. I love you, Julian Sterling, and I love you, future Mrs. Sterling. At that moment, they heard small footsteps on the terrace. Lila appeared in her pajamas, carrying her teddy bear. I can't sleep, she said in a sleepy voice. Can I stay with you? Of course, princess, Julian said, lifting her into his arms. The three of them hugged on the terrace, looking at the stars and dreaming of the wonderful future that awaited them. Uncle Julian, Lila asked. Yes, my love? When you're my real daddy, will you love me forever? Julian felt his heart was going to jump out of his chest. I will love you for life and beyond, Sophia. You are my daughter of the heart. And will you love Mommy forever too? I will love your Mommy until the stars in the sky run out. Lila smiled, satisfied, and snuggled between the two of them. Then I have the complete family that I ask the stars for every night. Isabella and Julian looked at each other over the little girl's head, knowing that all three of them had found exactly what they had been looking for, their whole lives. The next 2 months were the happiest in Julian's life. The house, which for so many years had been an empty and silent place, was now filled with laughter, conversations, and the sound of Lila's little footsteps running through the hallways. Isabella had started working at the company, and Julian had realized that he was right to trust her intelligence and ability. In just 6 weeks, she had completely reorganized the Human Resources Department and had implemented new security protocols to prevent fraud like the one Alexander Hayes had committed. Good morning, future wife, Julian said that morning, entering the office they now shared. Good morning, boss, Isabella replied with a mischievous smile, getting up to give him a kiss that made him feel like he could conquer the world. How are the wedding preparations going? Everything's perfect. The church is reserved for next Saturday. The venue is decorated, and the dress... Oh, Julian, the dress is beautiful. I can't wait to see you walking down the aisle. And how is Lila with all this? Julian smiled widely. Yesterday she told me she had already practiced walking with the flowers like 30 times. She's more excited than we are. In the last few weeks, Lila had started calling him Dad naturally, and every time she did, Julian felt his heart fill with an indescribable joy. Julian, Isabella said, getting so serious. There's something I want to tell you. What is it, my love? Yesterday I spoke with Robert Vance about Lila's adoption papers, and they are ready. As soon as we get married, you can officially adopt her, Lila Sterling. Doesn't that sound beautiful? Julian felt his eyes fill with tears. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. That afternoon, when they returned home, they found Lila in the garden with Mr. Davis, the butler, who had taken her under his wing as if she were his own granddaughter. "Daddy, Mommy!" the girl shouted, running toward them. "Mr. Davis taught me how to plant flowers." "Really, Princess?" Julian said, lifting her into his arms. "And what flowers did you plant?" "White daisies, like the ones Mommy is going to carry at the wedding. Mr. Davis says they're going to grow very beautiful for when we have the party." Julian looked at Mr. Davis with gratitude. The elderly butler had been working at the house for more than 20 years and had been the only constant company Julian had had. Now, seeing him so happy and affectionate with Lila filled him with emotion. "Mr. Davis, could I speak with you for a moment?" "Of course, sir." While Isabella took Lila to bathe, Julian stayed with the butler in the garden. "Mr. Davis, you have been like a father to me at all these years. It has been an honor to work for you, Mr. Sterling. That's why I want to ask you something very special. Would you like to be the best man at my wedding?" The old man's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, are you sure?" "Completely sure. You are the family I chose, and I want you to be by my side on the most important day of my life." Mr. Davis wiped away his tears with his handkerchief. "It will be the greatest honor of my life, sir." That night, during dinner, Julian had one more surprise for his future family. "Isabella, Lila, I have something to show you." He led them to a room on the second floor that had been closed for weeks. "What's in there?" "Daddy?" Lila asked with curiosity. "Open it and see," Julian said, handing the key to the girl. When Lila opened the door, both she and Isabella were speechless. The room had been transformed into any little girl's dream room. The walls were painted a soft pink with white clouds. There was a bed shaped like a castle, shelves full of books and toys, and in the center, a beautiful handmade wooden horse. It's for me?" Lila asked with wide eyes. "It's your new room, Princess. Do you like it?" Lila ran all over the room, touching everything, laughing and shouting with happiness. "It's the most beautiful room in the world. Thank you, Daddy. I love you so, so much." Isabella had tears in her eyes. "Julian, you didn't have to do this. I wanted Lila to know that this is really her home, that she will never again have to worry about having a place to sleep or a place to play. And that horse, I had it made especially for her. The craftsman told me it was identical to the one he had made for his own daughter." Lila climbed onto the horse and began to rock. "Look, I'm a real princess." "Yes, my love," Isabella said. "You are our princess." That night, after Lila fell asleep in her new room, Isabella and Julian stayed up talking in their bedroom. "Julian, can I confess something to you?" "Anything you want, my love. Sometimes I'm afraid that all this is too good to be true. I'm afraid I'll wake up and realize it was just a dream." Julian took her hands and kissed them gently. "My love, this is real. Our love is real. Our family is real. Our future together is real." "How can you be so sure?" "Because never in my life have I felt something so strong and true as what I feel for you and Lila. Because when I'm with you, I feel that I am finally the person I always wanted to be." "And who is that person?" "A man who loves and is loved. A husband who cares for and protects his family. A father who wakes up every morning excited to see his daughter grow." Isabella snuggled into his arms. "I love you so much, Julian. Sometimes I feel like my heart is going to explode with so much happiness. And this is just the beginning, my love. Our life together is just starting." As they held each other in the darkness, they both thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to that moment. From that rainy night, when Isabella had knocked on his door asking for work for food, to now, when they were about to become husband and wife. Love had transformed not only their lives, but also their souls, and they both knew that the best was yet to come. Saturday morning dawned with a completely clear sky, as if the universe had decided that this day had to be perfect. Julian woke up early, but instead of feeling nervous, he felt a peace and happiness he had never experienced before. He got up and walked to the window. In the garden, he could see Davis directing the employees who were putting up the final decorations for the reception that would be held at the mansion after the religious ceremony. "Good morning, future husband," he heard Isabella's voice behind him. He turned and saw her standing in the doorway, radiant in her white silk robe. "Good morning, future wife. Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby. And you?" "Better than ever." "Where's Lila?" "She's still sleeping. She got very tired yesterday with the rehearsal at the church." Julian approached her and hugged her. "Are you ready to be Mrs. Sterling?" "I've been ready since the day I fell in love with you," Isabella replied, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. At that moment, they heard small footsteps running down the hallway. "Mommy! Daddy!" Lila shouted, bursting into the room. "Today's the wedding! Today's the wedding!" The girl was wearing her princess pajamas, and her hair was completely messy. "Yes, my love," Isabella said, lifting her up. "Today, Daddy and Mommy are going to get married, and you're going to be the most beautiful flower girl in the world. Can I put on my dress now?" "After breakfast, princess. First, we have to eat to have energy for the party." During breakfast, the three of them couldn't stop laughing and getting excited. Lila had practiced her role as flower girl so much that she already knew every step she had to take by heart. "Daddy," the girl said, "da-da," very seriously. "After today, I'm going to be officially your daughter. Officially, legally, and for life, my love. And we're going to live together forever. Forever and one more day." Lila smiled, satisfied, and continued eating her pancakes. At 10 in the morning, Isabella's older sister, Maria Elena, who had come from Guadalajara especially for the wedding, arrived. She was the only family Isabella had left, and Julian had been very moved when she had agreed to be the maid of honor. "Isabella!" Maria Elena shouted upon entering the house. "I can't believe this day has arrived." The two sisters hugged with tears in their eyes. "Maria Elena, I want you to meet Julian, my future husband." "It's a pleasure to finally meet you," Julian said, giving her a warm hug. "Isabella has told me so much about you, and I've heard wonderful things about you. Thank you for making my sister so happy." "Aunt Maria Elena!" Lila shouted, running toward her. "My beautiful girl, look how big you are." Maria Elena had brought gifts for everyone, but the most special one was for Lila, a necklace of tiny pearls that had belonged to their grandmother. "This necklace was worn by your great-grandmother on her wedding day. Then your grandmother wore it, and then your mommy wore it for her first communion. Now, it's yours, to wear, today." Lila touched the pearls with reverence. "It was really my great-grandmother's. It really was. And now you're the next one in the family who's going to wear it on a special day." At 11, the women went to get ready, while Julian and Mr. Davis stayed to review the last details. "Mr. Sterling," the butler said, "in 30 years of working in this house, I have never seen it so full of life and joy. Everything changed when they arrived, Mr. Davis. This house finally feels like a home. Are you nervous?" "Not at all. I feel complete, as if my whole life had been waiting for this moment." At 2 in the afternoon, the guests began to arrive at the Church of St. Joseph, a beautiful colonial building that Julian had chosen because it was where Isabella had had her first communion as a child. The church was decorated with white daisies and roses, Isabella's favorite flowers. The pews were filled with company employees, close friends, and the few families who had been affected by Hayes's fraud and who had now been compensated thanks to the fund that Julian had established. At 3 o'clock sharp, the wedding march began to play. Julian, dressed in an elegant black suit, was standing at the altar with Mr. Davis and Father Johnson, who had prepared them over the last few weeks. First, Lila entered, walking slowly and scattering white rose petals. She was wearing a white dress with pink details, a small flower wreath in her hair, and her great-grandmother's pearl necklace. She was so focused on doing her job well that her tongue was slightly sticking out, which made all the guests laugh. When she got to the altar, she winked at Julian and whispered, "I did it perfectly, Daddy." "More than perfect, Princess," he whispered back. Then Maria Elena entered, elegant in a navy blue dress, followed by... When the church doors opened completely, and Isabella appeared on the arm of Robert Vance, who had accepted with honor to give her away, Julian felt his heart stop. Isabella was absolutely radiant. Her wedding dress was made of white silk with delicate lace, a classic but elegant cut that perfectly enhanced her figure. She wore her mother's veil, which Maria Elena had saved all these years, and in her hands she held a bouquet of white daisies and roses. But what most impacted Julian wasn't the dress. It was her eyes. Those same honey-colored eyes that had captivated him from the first night now shone with a happiness and a love so pure that he had to blink several times to hold back tears. As Isabella walked slowly toward him, Julian remembered the incredible journey that had brought them to that moment. From that rainy night when she had appeared at his door asking for work for food, to now, when she was about to become his wife. When Isabella reached the altar, Robert gave her hand to Julian. "Take good care of her," he whispered. "She is an extraordinary woman." "With my life," Julian replied with absolute sincerity. Father Johnson began the ceremony with a warm smile. "Dear brothers and sisters, we have gathered today to celebrate the union of Julian and Isabella, two souls who found each other when they needed it most and who have decided to walk together for the rest of their lives." Throughout the ceremony, Julian couldn't take his eyes off Isabella. She also never stopped looking at him, and there seemed to be a connection so strong between them that all the guests could feel it. When it was time for the vows, Julian spoke first. "Isabella, when you came into my life, you didn't just bring me love. You brought me hope. You taught me that true wealth is not in what you have, but in the people you love. I promise to take care of you, respect you, and love you every day of my life. I promise to be the best father for Lila and the best husband for you. I promise that you will never again have to ask for food for work, because my house, my heart, and my life will always be yours." Isabella had tears rolling down her cheeks as she responded. "Julian, you saved me when I thought there was no more hope. You gave me back my dignity, my self-confidence, and you gave me the purest love I ever thought could exist. I promise to love you with all my heart, to support you in all your dreams, and to build the beautiful family we both always dreamed of with you. I promise that every day I will show you how grateful I am to have found you." When they exchanged rings, Lila clapped excitedly, making the entire congregation laugh. "By the power vested in me," Father Johnson said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Julian, you may kiss your wife." When Julian kissed Isabella, everyone stood up and applauded. But for them, in that moment, only the two of them existed, sealing with that kiss the beginning of their new life together. "They're married! They're married!" Lila shouted, jumping for joy. After signing the documents, the little family headed for the church exit. The guests were waiting outside with rose petals to throw at them as they left. "How does it feel to be Mrs. Sterling?" Julian asked Isabella as they walked through the rain of petals. "It feels like I've come home after a very long trip." At the mansion, the party was unforgettable. Mr. Davis had supervised every detail, and everything was perfect. The tables were decorated with white tablecloths and centerpieces with daisies. There was a mariachi band playing the couple's favorite songs, and a three-tiered cake with figurines representing the three of them: Julian, Isabella, and Lila. During dinner, Julian stood up to make a toast. "Dear friends and family, 4 months ago, my life changed forever. When a brave woman knocked on my door asking for work for food. That night I thought I was just helping someone in need, but in reality, that woman was saving me." The guests listened, moved. Isabella taught me that true love is not found. It is built day by day with small gestures, with understanding, with patience, and with a desire to be a better person. And Lila, he looked at the girl who was sitting between him and Isabella. "Lila taught me that being a father has nothing to do with blood, but with love." "I love you, Daddy," Lila shouted, making him laugh. "That's why today we are not just celebrating a wedding. We are celebrating the birth of a family. I toast to my wife, to my daughter, and to all of you who are with us on this special day." When everyone toasted, Maria Elena also asked to speak. "I met Isabella when she was 3 years old, and since then, I knew she had a special heart. She saw her parents die. She fought alone for years. She raised Sophia without anyone's help, and she never, ever lost faith that things could get better." She wiped away tears before continuing. "Julian, you are not just marrying a beautiful woman. You are marrying the strongest, noblest, and most loving person I know. Take good care of her, because she deserves all the happiness in the world." The party continued until very late. Julian danced the waltz with Isabella. Then he danced with Lila, who stood on his feet to reach him, and then he danced with Maria Elena and even with some of the house staff. But the most emotional moment came when the mariachi band began to play La Llorona, and Isabella approached Julian. "My dad used to sing this song to me when I was a little girl," she told him. "I always thought it was very sad, but today it sounds like hope." "Why?" "Because it talks about a love so strong that it transcends everything, like ours." As they danced slowly, surrounded by their loved ones, Julian realized that he had found exactly what he had been looking for his whole life without knowing it. "What are you thinking about?" Isabella asked him. "I'm thinking that 4 months ago, if someone had told me that a woman would come to my door asking for work for food, and that she would completely change my life, I wouldn't have believed them. And now I believe in miracles. I believe that sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them, and I believe that true love can transform anything." At 11 at night, when only the closest family members remained, Lila snuggled into Julian's lap. "Daddy," she said in a sleepy voice, "now we are a family forever. Forever and for all eternity, my princess, and we will never be sad again." "Well, sometimes life has difficult moments," Isabella explained. "But the important thing is that now we are going to face them together. And when you're with the people you love, even the difficult moments become easier. Then I'm never going to be afraid of anything again," Lila said, closing her eyes. Julian and Isabella looked at each other over the little girl's head, feeling that their hearts were so full of love that they could explode. That night, after putting Lila to bed in her new room, the newlyweds sat on their bedroom terrace, looking at the stars. "Do you remember the first night you slept in this house?" Isabella asked. "Of course. You were so scared, but there was also something in your eyes that told me you were an extraordinary woman." "I was terrified, not only because of our situation, but because from the moment you opened the door, I knew you were different from any man I had ever met. In what way? In that you looked at me as if I were a person worthy of respect, not an annoyance. You spoke to me with kindness when I hadn't been spoken to for days. And the way you treated Lila, at that moment I knew you had a beautiful heart. Julian took her hands and kissed them gently. Isabella Sterling, he said, savoring her new last name. Do you know that you are the bravest woman I know? Why do you say that? Because you had the courage to knock on a stranger's door when you had nothing left to lose. Because you fought for years for your daughter without giving up. Because you risked loving again after being hurt. I don't feel brave. I feel lucky, incredibly lucky. We are both lucky, and so is Lila. At that moment, as if she had heard her name, the girl appeared at the door of the terrace. Can I sleep with you tonight? She asked in a shy voice. Of course, my love, Isabella said. Come here. The three of them lay down in the big bed, with Lila in the middle, and stayed awake for a while longer, talking about plans for the future. Can we go to Disneyland? Lila asked. We can go wherever you want, princess, Julian replied. And can we get a puppy? Of course, they both said at the same time, making the girl laugh. And are you going to have more babies so I can have brothers and sisters? Julian and Isabella looked at each other and smiled. Would you like to have brothers and sisters? Isabella asked. Yes, lots of brothers and sisters to play with. Well, we'll see what the future holds, Julian said, stroking the girl's hair. Little by little, Lila fell asleep between them. Julian and Isabella looked at each other over her little head, feeling more complete and happy than they had ever imagined possible. I love you, Mrs. Sterling, Julian whispered. I love you, Mr. Sterling, Isabella replied. And as the stars shone outside the window, the family that had formed in the most unexpected way fell asleep holding each other, knowing that they had found exactly what they had been looking for their whole lives. In the end, what had begun with a simple question, could I clean your house for food, had become the most beautiful love story either of them had ever dreamed of. Julian had discovered that Isabella was not just a needy woman who had come to his door. She was the love of his life, the mother of his heart's daughter, and the person who had taught him that true wealth is not measured in money, but in love. And Isabella had discovered that sometimes, when all seems lost, life can surprise you with a miracle disguised as a kind man who opens not only his door, but also his heart. Together, they had built something beautiful, a family based on true love, mutual respect, and the certainty that when the right people meet at the right time, they can create something magical that will last for all eternity. And so, this love story has ended, but the life of the Sterling family was just beginning. This story is a powerful reminder that true wealth and happiness are not found in possessions or status, but in compassion, vulnerability, and the courage to open your heart to others. Julian, a man with everything, found his life to be empty until a brave woman with nothing showed him the true meaning of human dignity and love. The story teaches us that a good heart can transform not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us. It is a testament to the idea that some of the greatest miracles and most beautiful love stories begin with an act of simple kindness, and that the most valuable things in life, like love, family, and a sense of belonging, are not found in what we have, but in what we share. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe to my channel.